I feel like at some point he's gonna call me a clown. That's his like go-to.
I'll be like, that's me.
It's different levels. You know what I mean? It's definitely.
Jake Paul may be known for his confidence and controversy, but recent footage of Gervonta "Tank" Davis's bulked-up physique seems to have rattled even him. Clips showing a stronger, more muscular Davis quickly went viral, sparking talk that Jake may have underestimated just how seriously Tank is taking this fight. Once a lightweight champion known for explosive speed and precision, Davis now looks closer to a natural welterweight, sending a clear message that he's not coming for show, but to dominate. Sources close to Paul suggest he's starting to feel the pressure, realizing that this new, more powerful version of Tank might be a far greater threat than anyone imagined. As the countdown to their November 14th showdown heats up, fans and analysts are stunned by GervontaDavis's incredible physical transformation. Once known for his explosive power and compact frame, the 5 feet 5 inches lightweight has added serious muscle, looking stronger, faster, and more dangerous than ever. The contrast between Davis's new build and Jake Paul's cruiserweight size became impossible to ignore during their tense Miami face-off, where Tank shoved Paul and the energy turned electric. Now appearing like a compact powerhouse, Davis has everyone wondering if Jake's trademark confidence is starting to waver against an opponent who's not only more skilled, but suddenly looks just as physically imposing. Davis has always been admired for his explosive power, blistering speed, and elite ring IQ, but his latest transformation has elevated him to a whole new level. Recent training footage and photos reveal a noticeably stronger version of the champion, with broader shoulders, thicker arms, and a lean, defined core, all achieved without sacrificing his trademark agility. This isn't just a cosmetic change or a social media flex. It's the evolution of a fighter fine-tuning every aspect of his body to deliver maximum dominance when the bell rings.
Right? Who's not a professional fighter. What happens? What happened? That's what would sell it. I know what the size difference is what creates the problem. The optics, the look, the reality. I mean, you got one guy who's fights at 135 pounds, and you got another guy who fights at 200. I mean, just that alone, yeah. But you also, and I'm not saying I want this or I like this when I heard it. No, I didn't like it, to be honest, for the optics and everything else I just said. But you do have one guy who, yeah, he's smaller, but he's a top fighter, he can punch. And he's fighting a guy who's not a top pro fighter, who's bigger. What if...
In a recent interview, the UFC bantamweight champion didn't mince words, declaring that GervontaDavis is levels above Jake Paul when it comes to skill, experience, and fight IQ. While he acknowledged Paul's size and physical strength, he quickly dismissed those factors as meaningless against an undefeated technician like Tank, whose knockout power and composure make him a different kind of threat. The champion also voiced frustration over the fight being labeled an exhibition, arguing that such a move weakens the sport's competitive integrity and downplays what could have been a truly defining matchup.
I enjoy these fucking stupid spectacles. I enjoy them. I'm excited for it. The controversy, the press conference, the weigh-ins. Imagine those two stand next to each other. Dude, Jake is a big motherfucker. Basically, like you two standing next to each other. Like if you guys stood up, it looks like that. Steiny's a little bit taller than Gervonta.
But I'm a feisty bro. It's not about the size of the dog. It's about the size of the what?
However, many observers see the fight less as a traditional boxing contest and more as a crossover spectacle, a fusion of sport and entertainment. This perception has sparked heated debate about fairness, safety, and the integrity of boxing's long-established weight class system, with critics questioning whether such matchups blur the lines between genuine competition and showmanship.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. Well, no, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts.
Experts argue that most of Jake Paul's fights lack true sporting logic or competitive balance. They're often crafted more for attention and entertainment than for genuine boxing credibility, rather than challenging opponents who make sense stylistically or within his natural weight class. Jake continues to select unconventional matchups. To many analysts, this approach makes his fights exciting spectacles, but not authentic boxing contests.
Paul won the fight, but yeah, that was that. This time, Jake Paul is to take on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, he was recently in the news for being arrested for a domestic violence incident involving one of his kids' mother. He was alleged to have slapped her about the place. The charges were later dropped, to be fair to him. But yeah, that was when he was last in the news. What is interesting is just a couple of months ago, Tank Davis was saying openly that he'd lost his passion for boxing and that he wanted time away from the sport. There was speculation that he might even retire as he was experiencing extreme mental fatigue from boxing, depression, and there were mental health concerns over him. However, I guess the opportunity to earn a truck full of money, fighting a completely worthless exhibition fight against Jake Paul was enough to make him change his mind about boxing. Funny that, isn't it? But you know what? I'm not even going to waste your time or mine critiquing this utter nonsense. Suffice to say that this so-called fight we're talking about is an exhibition, and it pits Jake Paul, who is a cruiserweight, by the way, weighs in excess of 200 pounds, and Tank Davis, who is, he was the WBA lightweight champion, who weighs in at about 135 pounds when he fights. So that's a disparity of some 65 pounds. In old money, that's about 4.5 stone. There's also a significant difference in height. Jake Paul is roughly, 6'1", 2. GervontaDavis is 5'5".
Jake Paul weighed in at 199.5 pounds as a cruiserweight, while Gervonta Tank Davis last competed at just 133.5 pounds in the lightweight division. This enormous weight gap initially led the Georgia State Athletic Commission to reject the original fight venue over safety concerns, forcing organizers to move the event to Miami. Although the exhibition now has a 195 pounds limit, Davis's noticeably bulked-up physique suggests he's closing the gap strategically. Still, Paul maintains a clear size and power advantage, factors that could influence the fight's durability and striking dynamics. The result is a true clash of contrasts: size versus skill, power versus precision, making it one of the most unconventional showdowns in modern boxing history.
Those little teeny weeny dudes. So that's going to be very fun and interesting to watch how that goes down. Now, on the other side, you know what Jake Paul's going to do. He don't have no consciousness. He doesn't have a conscience about what he's trying to do. He's going to go in there try to hurt a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. He don't care. He wanted to Nate. He's way bigger than Nate Jones when he fought Nate Jones. You think he didn't care about hitting Nate Jones upside the head? He's definitely going to be looking to try to get as much as he can get off on GervontaDavis, and I see him trying to run up on him, trying to maul him, trying to grab him, trying to club him, trying to do all kind of craziness, man. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Now, let me tell you what I really hope, and I haven't seen for this particular card, but I know that I know it's going to be good, which is the undercard. The undercard for the Canelo Alvarez fight and Terrence Crawford fight is absolutely horrendous. There's nothing on the thing that would make you want to watch to tune into that thing 2 seconds before the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford takes place. There's nothing on that card. So this fight for this exhibition for Gervonta and Jake Paul is probably going to have a lot of envy.
Ryan Garcia compared the upcoming Davis versus Paul bout to past controversial matchups in boxing history, such as Mike Tyson's exhibition fights that fans never really demanded. He admitted that the public doesn't genuinely want to see GervontaDavis face Jake Paul, but acknowledged that the boxing industry often pushes these kinds of spectacles forward anyway. Garcia emphasized the clear size difference between the two fighters, calling the matchup inherently unfair from the start. Still, he noted that despite fan discomfort, the fight will move ahead, driven not by competition or legacy, but by hype, attention, and massive financial incentives.
A fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson, low-key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean, the casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and GervontaDavis.
Yeah.
And if GervontaDavis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're gonna think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter.
Yeah.
GervontaDavis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight.
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't hold back, calling the entire situation an absolute joke. According to Froch, talks for a potential Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight were nearly finalized, with a deal reportedly 99% done. Yet instead of stepping up against a true heavyweight like Joshua, Paul chose to face GervontaDavis, a fighter nearly half his size. Froch said the move makes no competitive sense and only reinforces the belief that Jake is chasing spectacle over substance. To him, this decision proves Paul is more focused on shock value and viral attention than testing himself against real, evenly matched opponents.
Davis is now fighting Jake Paul. So Jake Paul was supposed to be fighting AJ. Eddie Hearn announced 99% done, which we've just spoke about. What next for AJ? Potentially Jake Paul. But it now looks like that Jake Paul is fighting one of Anthony Joshua's legs. He's fighting GervontaDavis, somebody who's a quarter of his size. I don't even know what's going on. Has Eddie Hearn been played? Let me know what you think, but the AJ fight with Jake Paul's finished. GervontaDavis, fake Paul, November. I don't know what's going on in the world of boxing. This is an absolute joke. What next for AJ? We'll get into this, and there's so many questions I want to get into in the next episode, but hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, I just thought I'd give you a quick update because the news has just come in and I'm just trying to relax and play a bit of golf and I can't. I've got to get it off my chest. I'm going to add it to this video. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit like, share and subscribe to the best channel in the business, Froch on Fighting, and we'll see you very soon.
Three-division undisputed champion Terrence Crawford has expressed clear doubts about the upcoming Jake Paul versus GervontaDavis matchup. He views it less as a legitimate competition and more as a stylized sparring session, largely due to the vast size difference between the two fighters. While Crawford acknowledges Davis's explosive talent and elite boxing ability, he remains concerned that Paul's larger frame and natural power could tilt the fight's momentum. According to Crawford, if Jake manages to land clean, that combination of weight and reach advantage could instantly change the course of the bout.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank.
Jake Paul has been aggressively reshaping boxing on his own terms. By investing his own money into promotion, spectacle, and storytelling, he's transformed what many once dismissed as a gimmick into a disruptive movement. His financial influence doesn't just create big events, it magnifies them, drawing in new audiences and unprecedented media coverage. While boxing purists criticize his unconventional rise, there's no denying the results. More attention, bigger paydays, and a surge of fresh energy in a sport that long needed revival. The very fact that this unlikely matchup materialized proves how far Paul is willing to push boundaries and redefine what's possible in the fight game.
But again, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. And we've seen that Jake will kind of bounce in between doing these entertainment fights and then, trying to push toward his goal of ingraining himself in the sport of boxing, and kind of does both of them. So it's kind of a weird place to be, because he wants the respect of the boxing fans and the boxing hierarchy and hardcore boxing people, but at the same time, he'll gain some of that and then lose some of it. It's like a seesaw of his fights. Like one fight, like, okay, that's a real fight, or that's a real fight. And he'll go and he'll win the fight. Julio Cesar Chavez, real fighter, maybe past his prime, whatever, but Jake goes and wins that fight pretty easily, and then gets a lot of respect, gets a lot of the boxing hardcore love. And you have these talks about him fighting Anthony Joshua, and that was going to get even more respect. More people were like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing? Myself included. That seemed like a massive risk, but a lot of people were like, okay, fair play. Anthony Joshua, that's a real heavyweight. Jake wants to fight him. He's a psycho, but fair play. And then you announce this one, and it's like, well, that's the same thing people have been saying about Jake for years. So it's a weird spot to be in for him, for sure. But I talked about this not being the first choice, and I don't think it was, because Coppinger reports next that talks for Jake Paul to face Anthony Joshua collapsed over network issues. Now, we had all heard the talks, and they were pretty public, from Eddie Hearn, from Jake. Nakisa Badarian, Jake's manager, was over in the UK on, I think, Sky Sports, talking about the fight and saying how it was a real possibility, and they were really
In contrast, analysts like Wade Plem argue that Jake Paul has injected fresh energy into boxing by drawing in fans who might never have cared about the sport before. He notes that Jake's biggest impact lies in connecting with younger audiences, those who value entertainment and spectacle as much as competition. Even with the controversy surrounding his rise, Plem believes that broadening boxing's reach and cultural relevance outweighs concerns about purity or tradition. Similarly, Vargas Jr. shares this sentiment, emphasizing the power of surprise. He admits the matchup between Paul and Davis was unexpected, but that unpredictability is what fuels excitement. Fans crave novelty, and in Vargas Jr.'s size, this fight delivers exactly that. Something new to debate, anticipate, and remember, regardless of whether it's viewed as good or bad for the sport.
So I think that the Misfits brings a different element. Obviously, there's chaos and all of these things, and it's not the most buttoned up and it's not the most high level, but there are moments where you have some really competitive fights. And even with the Jake and Gervonta thing, it's like, is it the best thing for boxing? That's boxing's fault, right? Like, if you're going to complain about it, point the finger the other way, because everybody else did it. You guys put yourselves in this position where these kind of fights are more interesting than some of your world title fights. And that's really, really sad. I know. That's where we're at. And is it Jake's fault for being like, yeah, this is what people want to see, I'm going to do it? Is it GervontaDavis' fault? Maybe a little bit, because he's a world champion. Yeah. Give up your belt. To me, it should be give your belt up, right? You're saying to the world, you don't want to fight Shakur Stevenson. You don't want to fight Lamont Roach. So give the belt up. That's fine. Go do that. Okay. Say you're done at the highest level. Say you have no interest in being a world champion, and I'm okay with it. Yeah. But outside of that, man, I mean, it's a money fight and it's an exhibition. Everybody, I think, kind of knows what that brings in. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. But at the same time, boxing needs to get its stuff together.
BJ Flores views the Davis fight as a calculated and strategic move in Jake Paul's evolving boxing journey. In his analysis, Paul's natural frame and steady physical development make him better suited for cruiserweight or even heavyweight competition. However, by facing a world-class opponent like Gervonta "Tank" Davis, Jake isn't simply cashing in on hype, he's building credibility. Flores sees this matchup as a pivotal moment, one that elevates Jake's profile and solidifies his name among serious boxing audiences. More than a spectacle, it's a stepping stone, a way for Paul to prove he can share the ring with elite fighters while setting up future challenges in higher, more competitive weight divisions.
That's a funny story. So one of my good friends, Armani, he has been working with Jake Paul for the last 2 years. There was a little time where Shane wasn't there with Jake, and Armani called me up and said, "Hey, BJ, will you come down to Big Bear and spar with Jake?" And I'm like, "You want me to spar with Jake?" I'm thinking to myself, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's beating up all his sparring partners. We come, I was like, all right, I mean, fine, I'll go down there and do it. I have been inactive. I haven't done anything for like 8 months, but I was like, okay, I'll go down there. So we spar a couple times. After that, they decided I was too big for him. And, you know, it's better if we just, you know, not do it. And, you know, then they asked me if I would be interested in like working the mitts with them and helping him with the combinations, because I was hitting him with some, you know, some combinations they hadn't seen before. And I said, we can teach him all those things and have him doing all those things. And so I started working the mitts with him and helping him out on the mitts. And he told his trainers and everybody, they're like, man, I want BJ around for the entire camp because I'm getting better. My job is like Shane does the advice in the corner and I do the mitt.
Meanwhile, Jake Paul fired back at growing skepticism surrounding the Davis fight with a flamboyant, attention-grabbing stunt, smashing a tank-shaped cake in front of cameras. The act, clearly orchestrated, was a symbolic jab at Gervonta "Tank" Davis, meant to mock his nickname while reinforcing Jake's role as the sport's self-made villain. Rather than letting critics control the story, Paul flipped the script, using spectacle to seize the spotlight once again. The cake-smashing moment wasn't about subtlety, it was about showmanship. Juvenile or not, do you think Jake Paul can handle this new, stronger, and sharper version of Tank Davis? Share your thoughts in the comments below.